Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. Today I have Andre, my co-founder and work husband, and Kristyn, the creative director of the company. We talk a lot about branding. I wanted to put together a couple of examples for everyone and walk through what good branding represents and how it ties into the office. And I wanted to start with the Children's Dentistry of Utah. It's in Centerville, and I'm going to bring up the site, and I'd love you to walk me through your thoughts on the brand.
I guess I want to take it back to when we first went out there and saw the office. They had these incredible murals. They're all Disney inspired. It ranged from sunrise to sunset across the entire front office. So it was scenes from Aladdin, Lion King, all merged into one epic mural. And it was something that was entirely unique. We hadn't seen that before, especially for a pediatric office where kids are going in, they're scared of the dentist, but they see this and they're just, immediately wowed by it. So when we were working on rebranding the website for them and other collateral, we brought in some of the elements from the murals, the idea of like the stars and the enchanted castle, things like that. And the colors they have these purple tones with yellow and gold, and brought that into the website and implemented it here. And you can see that it feels magical. It feels welcoming. You can immediately tell this is for kids. And that's exactly what it looks like.
One of the things that I like about it, and I'm going to go back to the top, is it is built for kids. It does not seem kiddie to me, which I think a lot of pediatric sites do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can hear a potential dentist listening to this right now thinking, I don't have awesome murals in my office, so what does that mean for me? Like, what should my brand look like? And I think for me, one of the aspects that I think is important is it doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a mural like this. But I think there are always ways to bring some elements of the office into the digital presence to make it feel cohesive, to make it feel like what you see online is in alignment with what you can expect the practice, and it gives a bit of polish to the brand because it makes it feel like you have your stuff together. So, I think the opposite of that would be to pick a website look and feel that's completely arbitrary, just looking at it in a vacuum, and then have your business cards and brochures be completely different, and have the office look and feel be completely different. I think that's the opposite of what you want to do. But as long as you're being intentional and you have a little bit of detail that perhaps carries over, and it could be an accent color from the design in the office, or a texture, or the way the hardwood floors are, or there's always something that you can translate across the different mediums. And I don't know that patients are thinking about this actively, but I'll say for me, when I see someone who pays attention to detail at the small things, I feel more confident about them doing the big things right. And so if I see the website looks a bit messy, and the office is a little bit messy, and their Facebook and Instagram and Google profile, everything looks a little bit disjointed, not that I wouldn't go see them, especially if I have a referral or something like that. But it does make me wonder, do they care as much as I care for my business, for example?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Let's jump into Keller, Texas. Brent Cornelius at Sky Creek Dental. Walk me through the branding on this one.
Yeah, I like Brent. He is actually my personal dentist, so I'm a little bit biased. But keeping the thread from last time, when you first land here, you see these huge, beautiful smiles right out of the gate. It's warm, it's inviting. These are a couple of the team members, and right away the message is 5-star dental care at your service. You know exactly what you're going to get. I love that they talk about service. If you've ever met Brent in person, he is one of those guys who really believes in service, leadership, and giving and caring. And as you go through the site, if you stop right there, you can see that some of the elements from the counter are used in the texture of the homepage. You can see the wood tones from the bookshelf and the floors are being used as texture on the site. And it just looks intentional. It looks polished. It looks like this guy does pay attention to detail, and he does, down to the paper that he chooses for the new patient paperwork. If you listen to a couple episodes ago when Brent was on, he talks about, if I'm handing someone something, I want it to feel good in their hands. And you can see that level of care translated on his site. it shows, and I think patients feel it, even though they might not be able to put their finger on what is specifically drives that feeling. I think as a overall experience, it's communicated very well. Kristyn, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just comparing the feeling I get from this site with UCD's site. And I love how this does feel very polished and very elegant. And thinking of when I've been to the office to visit, it translates really well. It feels very clean, but also just it has a certain depth to it. Something like as if he was rooted in the community, as if he's been there for a while, but not like in an aged way, but in a way that it feels just it feels like he has like some kind of status there in the community.
Yeah, I think he appeals to the population of Keller. He is a fee-for-service office. He does a lot of high-end industry, and I think if that's the kind of practice you run, I think this type of look and feel supports that. That's no different than if you walk into I don't know, a hole-in-the-wall restaurant in a strip center. That doesn't mean that you expect to have bad food, but you don't have the same expectations as if you walk into a five-star restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, doesn't mean that the five-star restaurant food is going to be amazing 100% of the time, but you're setting the tone with the visitor of the establishment as to what to expect. And I think with the website being your digital storefront, if you will, the hub for your marketing, the first sort of opportunity that a patient has to get to know more about you, you want to make sure that what's being reflected there does in fact represent who you are. I think oftentimes we see a lot of stock content, a lot of stock photography, and not a lot of care to it, which is not to say that you can't have a successful practice that way, but it certainly doesn't set the tone the way that this does.
Two great offices and great branding that ties from the digital into the physical and even the doctor's personality. Yeah, I think these are great examples. Well, Andre, Kristyn, thank you so much for jumping on with me. And that was your Bite of Dental Marketing.